Please listen carefully.
Hello, universe. Welcome to the Optimist Daily Update. I'm Summers McKay.
And I'm Kristy Jansen, and we are part of the team behind the Optimist Daily, making solutions the news. We bring you reader-funded solutions news every day in order to change the tenor of news media, social media, and the direction of your day to one focused on solutions.
7 days a week, we publish positive news stories written by award-winning journalists and delivered online to your inbox and through our social channels. And also, we are sharing these solutions in a commute-worthy, walk-worthy, home office-worthy podcast. Today is Thursday, the 29th of April, 2021. Hello, Kristy. Happy Thursday. How are you?
Happy Thursday, Summers. I'm well. I'm feeling pretty positive today, and as we were talking about before, in our rundown before we started recording, I am savoring my last few days of the full remote office experience.
Yeah.
Because Monday is when we are at least part-time going back into the office. And I don't know how it's going to turn out. I'm a little anxious about it, but I am now really grooving in my home office for the next 2 days.
You're not even going to leave it. You're just going to stay in your home office. Your husband's going to be like, where are you? You're literally on the other side of the bedroom, but you're like, hush, I'm in the office, honey.
I'm stapled into my chair right now.
No, it's so remarkable, right? What used to be so kind of a punishment has now become something that we really are grateful for. And I'm so glad that you get to return to the office because I know it will lift you in tremendous ways. And then I'm also glad that I'm staying right where I am.
Well, and I think it's interesting because the novelty of it in the beginning was refreshing. And
yes.
But then the monotony of never leaving the house was starting to feel oppressive.
Right.
And now I'm now appreciating the novelty again because I'm looking at the end of it. That doesn't mean that we're done with this pandemic situation. Doesn't mean that things may turn in a dark direction again and we have to be flexible. But for the moment, I'm just appreciating where I am and that I've been fortunate enough to be able to move my work life so that I can work from home. And I'm really grateful for that opportunity and for the way that we've all learned to work together in this environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And just as you say, we're not through it. The other day, my daughter's school, there was another positive COVID test in one of the teachers, actually. And that meant that they shut down that particular classroom and another classroom that the teacher had interacted with for 10 days. And I forwarded the email. We were not affected.
Mm-hmm.
But because these kids are super little, and they can't wear masks. And so they run around and they're just like a little germ fest. It's what they are. But they keep the pods tight for each kid. But when one is exposed, they are all exposed. And so I forwarded it to my husband just as a reminder that there will likely come a time where I ring into Kristy and Amelia and say, hey guys, Brennan's home for 10 days. Mm. And that knowing that is very likely to happen. And that we can plan for it and prepare for it. But at the end of the day, there will continue to be disruptions. Mm-hmm. And certainly globally, we're not through the woods yet. But right now, it's heading in the right direction. And I just want to applaud everyone who is doing what they can to continue to practice safe social distancing and continuing, and getting their vaccinations, even though there are new strains coming out. Vaccines are still relevant and will continue to be. And I read this funny article actually about this is the first vaccine where people get bummed out when they don't have symptoms afterward because it's kind of become this like social media meme of talking about how you like, oh, second day second shot, feel miserable, and you're in the club. And it made me laugh because I have not yet had my second shot, but I will soon. And I'm sort of preparing for it to be like a less than productive day. So
maybe, but it may be nothing. It really depends on the person.
Exactly.
It's always a bit of a gamble.
Well, and this topic of conversation, even though we keep circling it, the truth is the stories that Kristy and I have both picked today are talking about our world in shared spaces and our resources in shared spaces and the way that we recognize that our small communities, whether it be our pods, our offices, our colleagues, those we attend school with, or the bigger global community, we have to think about the repercussions of our choices as they affect everyone else. But then we can also think about our solutions as they can positively affect everyone else. And Kristy, I'm going to pitch to you because I think that you have an interesting perspective on the idea of solar shared communities and your own experience with pursuing solar for your house.
Sure. I'll open this up, and I have experience with both of the topics we're going to talk about today. But my headline that I selected from today's stories on the Optimist Daily reads, How Community Shared Solar Can Expand Renewable Energy Access. And this is something that I feel really strongly about. I've moved to an electric vehicle. I am trying to lower my footprint however I can from a sort of philosophical and personal perspective, just my little drop. One of the things that I would love is to be able to install solar on our house, on our roof. And I've actually started looking into that because I do own a condo, a townhouse. I have a roof over my head that I could install solar on. However, it's not that easy. And many people in this country don't have that ability, right? But should that really be the barrier of entry into this green renewable future in terms of our energy profile? I mean, like the house that I live in, the roof is all these cute little cutaways. It doesn't have a good south-facing expanse. And I had a consultant come in and give me an estimate, and the maximum amount of solar that I could get from my very cut up rooftop space is about 2 kilowatts, which is enough for like one circuit. So I could like run the refrigerator. You know what I mean? It's like it's not enough to get off the grid. It's not enough to contribute in a substantial way. And it's so expensive. It's quite costly. So it just doesn't make sense for us to do. My husband and I talked about it and we're like, can't do it. But I'd love to be able to participate in a community shared solar project, which is what this article is about. Some of the barriers to entry are just not having the roof resources to be able to install solar.
Right. And we talk about home ownership being a barrier to entry for a lot of things, right? Like, and ownership as opposed to renting your place of living can, in the past, could preclude you, and in many cases can preclude you from participating in renewable resources for energizing your home.
But even if you do own a house or a place, the initial investment, the capital needs for installing solar is tremendous. And many people just don't have those resources. And there are some subsidy programs that are coming out, and that's what this article highlights. It's focused on the Massachusetts Mass Solar Loan Program, which has been quite successful. It's talking about the community shared solar projects that allow multiple households to invest together on solar arrays, which are installed on apartment buildings, public spaces, or on a commercial rooftop that you can sort of buy a share in. And in this way, multiple households can share the financial burden and the subsequent rewards of that solar energy. And I think this is a brilliant sort of collective solution to a real issue that we'll need to take more and more into account as we move away from a carbon-based economy and towards a renewable energy economy.
Yeah, I think this is a great story. And we talk often about community microgrids and the value of microgrids, and that this is just one part of it. And we also often discuss, regionally appropriate energy solutions. And so as always, this is a great story from the editorial team at the Optimist Daily. Yeah. Sharing is caring. Sharing is caring.
And one of the things that this highlights is a few programs that have been successful, and they are sort of the trailblazers, the SMART program from Massachusetts, the Solar Massachusetts Renewable Target program, which allows for this kind of collective investment and also offers discounts for low-income customers or residents with racial and ethnic diversity, which are traditionally have been excluded from this kind of energy. Resonant Energy is another company in Lexington, Kentucky. The problem is that at the state and regional level, it's hard to do because the utilities still have a strangle grip in many cases on the way that our energy flows. And so I think there has to be more of these kinds of public-private partnerships. We have to design paths where people can purchase in to sort of this community choice in community shared solar. So this is a great article. It highlights a few interesting programs, but I would love to see this come closer to home so that I could actually participate.
Absolutely. So speaking of energy grids and systems, I don't know if you can hear, but there is a thunderstorm brewing out there. And some of you may have heard that last week I lost power for several hours because of a thunderstorm. So preemptively, if I cut out of this podcast, Amelia is going to have to finish it if my power goes out again. Hopefully it will not. I think one of the controversial parts of this conversation, Kristy, is also this idea that if we look at what happened with the Texas power grid and the Texas system and way that there is bifurcated power systems in Texas, they weren't prepared to basically handle the dramatic change in power requirements that occurred during the winter storm. So it is a hybrid mindset of figuring out how to ensure that communities can stay with power on even through sort of extreme weather conditions, which we know will continue to happen. Mm-hmm. So love this. While you are heating your home with solar or not, there is one other thing. We know that heat and energy are required to live successfully in our contemporary world. There's also this thing called clothing. This is my awkward transition. But
another way of keeping yourself warm, right?
Exactly. Another way of keeping yourself warm is wrapping yourself in bright pink, fuzzy Diane von Furstenberg baby jackets. Wait, no, that's not what I meant to say. No, actually, so the headline that I am picking is Save the Earth and Your Wallet by Renting Your Kids' Clothing Online. Now, we found a great story from The Guardian that the Optimist Daily editorial team went through, took a pass on, and it shared about a lot of companies in Europe and the UK who are allowing parents to rent baby clothes. Everybody who has had a child, whether your child is 0 to 9 months or in Kristy's case just turned 15, the amount of clothing sizes that child can go through in a year can be like up to 8 clothing sizes. My little girl is in 3Ts and she is not that little. She's a very tall one. And just the other day, she was running around in her little rompers, which we bought when we got to Texas, and they're too short. So it's kind of ridiculous. So what I love about this particular story is that it talks about companies that allow you to sort of like the company here in the United States, Rent the Runway, but you can rent for a month at a time size appropriate clothing for your children. Unlike Rent the Runway, a lot of these companies are offering more essential type products as opposed to just fashion wear.
Not just the fancy outerwear that.
Not the fancy Diane von Furstenberg baby puff jacket, which we were looking at. So what we at the Optimist Daily did is we love this article from The Guardian. We went through and we dug deep and we said, okay, what companies here in the United States are making this happen? Rent the Runway is one of them, but those are more fancy, kind of not everyday clothes.
Well, for the kid, that's the kids level. Rent the Runway has
exactly. It's kids level. Yeah. Some of the other ones that we really loved is babyproductsmom.com, rent baby clothes. There's everlastingwardrobe.com. And then we also found one that I love. It's called Rent the Romper or rentaromper.com. And Rent a Romper has this beautiful quote, which I'm going to read. Did you know that extending the life of an item of clothing for 9 months can reduce the carbon waste and water footprint of that item by 30%? So guys, this is true not just for baby clothes, but for everybody's clothes. Extending the life of our clothes and reducing their turn to landfill is so critical. Something that I also love about Rent the Romper, which seems to be a new and growing company, is that they will also help moms recycle their clothes. You can ship it to them in their donation program. And I know when we moved, I donated literally, storage boxes full of baby clothes because Brennan zipped through her clothes so quickly. And now, I've got some moms locally here who I've queued up because, as soon as she passes out of these 2Ts and 3Ts and into 4Ts, I'm going to have more clothing to give away. But I love that this company is offering basically a circular experience where you can send in your used clothes, they will assess them and determine whether or not they are rentable, and then put them back into the marketplace. And so you are reducing your cost by stepping into this program as well. One of the things that I thought was really charming, and it made me think of another story, is one of the things you can't recycle are socks. But we know there's a company out there that will make dog beds out of your socks. So I just, I get very excited about reducing fashion waste, as well as, having a lot of fun dressing your kids. I think these are great. And if you want to get links to all of those clothing companies to share with moms or even for yourself, head on over to theoptimistdaily.com and check out this article.
And I think it's an interesting new mindset to think about using local thrift stores. There's lots of secondhand stores now that are cropping up. We have a number here in Santa Barbara, even where I live, for gently used children's clothing that you can either sell on consignment and buy from. And it's much cheaper to have a growing kid. And you can find great stuff there. It feels more eco-conscious, which is also something that I'm pro. Yes. And now that we're having less kids, as the recent census results have shown, we're having fewer children than we did even 10 years ago or 20 years ago. We don't have these massive families where the youngest kid is wearing all the hand-me-downs of the older kids,
Yes.
So
you mentioned it, and Amelia mentioned it, and it's such a good point. Like, Amelia was sharing that she had stories of like family friends where the oldest kid was wearing a t-shirt, and a year later, the other family friend's kid was wearing the t-shirt.
Yeah.
But multi-age children, were becoming increasingly one or two kids maxing out as what couples are having, and parents you just don't have, the youngest child wearing the 7-year-old t-shirt anymore.
And also, this is a getting away from fast fashion and the disposable t-shirts, things that only you can wash maybe 12 times before they fall apart. This is a testament to buying well-designed, well-made quality clothes, because if they last, then you can just repurpose them and reuse them. And, one person's trash is another person's treasure.
Exactly.
Anyway, other headlines today, I'll just read through a couple of them. Summers, there's a headline that reads, "Support pollinators this spring with flower billboards."
I'm on it.
Yes. This composting technique turns food waste into fertilizer in only 24 hours. Ooh, that's good.
I need to be on that, because the compost bin on my sink is really gross because I haven't set up the compost bin outside.
Another gardening story. There's a new study that shows regular gardening improves mental and physical well-being. I'm super down on that one. Mm-hmm. I read a quote the other day from Oliver Sacks that said that the only two things besides medical therapies that he saw as essential in improving neuro health was gardening and music.
I love it.
What else?
Okay, imposter syndrome, recognizing and managing this common phenomenon. We all need to be aware of that. A fashion partnership is making jackets out of old fishing nets. There is an interactive map that allows you to explore conservation land near you. And a laser-wielding autonomous robot can remove 100,000 weeds an hour.
That's frightening.
It is both frightening, and then also if it's sort of controversial, because our previous headline that said "Go garden for mental health." But my guess is that planting is more fulfilling than weeding. But I don't know.
One person's
weed is another never mind, Kristy. No.
Weeds are only, it's all about definition, right?
Yes.
I love dandelions.
Yes. Well, and I think we had a story not long ago about let's stop calling dandelions weeds. And last but not least, how to teach your kids to appreciate dishes from diverse cultures. Thank you, everybody, for listening to today's Optimist Daily Update. We promise to continue to share positive, solution-based stories about how you can participate in this changing world and ensure it is changed for the good. Please consider becoming an emissary on the Optimist Daily, and for just $5 a month, support reader-funded independent journalism. Help us keep the Optimist Daily free to all who need it, supported by those who can. Kristy, we will see you next week because you're taking Friday off from recording. Amelia will be on the pod with me tomorrow, and Kristy, we'll see you on Monday.
All right, Summers. Bye, everybody. Talk to you Monday.
Bye, guys.